Joining us today, we have David and Jake from the School of Geography to share their passion for geography with you and let you know why a degree at Nottingham stands out from the rest. Hello. Could you tell us why people should study geography here at Nottingham?
Sure, yeah. Geography it's an unusually broad subject. So it straddles the arts and humanities, the natural sciences, the social sciences. And really, the reason people choose to study geography most often is because they find that breadth really appealing to them. And especially if you think about the kind of world that they're going out to face, the kind of challenges that might be, environmental challenges around climate change, economic challenges, political challenges, geopolitics and the sort. There is a sense that breadth in and of itself is a really valuable thing in both the marketplace, in society and in general. And in Nottingham, we're really lucky to have a very large school of geography. So we teach across all aspects of human and physical geography, and students can specialise and inevitably will specialise based on what they're interested in. But broadly, they could also just choose to be a geographer and to pick a mix between those different areas. So that's one of the reasons, I think, why Nottingham is a very good place to study geography.
I think there's something else there as well, which is about curiosity and understanding that geographers have often learnt through case studies about other parts of the world, and thinking about the value of a geography degree is that it enables you to travel. In some instances that can be kind of travel through reading and ideas, but it can also be travel through things like field work as well, and that's another kind of component of any geography degree really. But embedded within our curriculum, then there's an emphasis connecting that field work through to skills development and then on into a world of work beyond.
Great. And how would you describe the geography degree that we offer?
I think, as Jake was saying before, that breadth of areas of interest really that animates people's research, the things that get them going, informs the design of the curriculum. So broadly speaking, broad introductory first year, and then being able to pick and choose your way across modules. So if you're on our BA or BSc programmes, the first year actually looks the same. You don't have to choose what kind of geographer you want to be, which is a really important hallmark of our degree programme. Come specialise later if you want to, and then into a whole variety of modules where members of staff are going to invite you into their research worlds. It's what we often call research-led teaching. And where it works best, it's actually teaching-led research. You end up with this incredibly exciting opportunity to share ideas with students, learn from them as well as you explore ideas and techniques together. And there's something else that's really distinctive about our department. Firstly, I think we're right in the thick of the action on University Park, which is a big, beautiful green campus, and we're right by the Portland building and the Student Union and libraries and so on and so forth. But we're all in the same building as well. And I think that shapes a culture in the school, a supportive one, but a kind of mutually curious one as well. So we want to kind of learn from one another and work with one another as members of staff. And that, I think, in terms of curriculum design, also informs how we want to teach. And also, I have to say, looking on to a world of work, how we want to assess as well.
It sounds like a really collaborative and inspiring space to be in. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, as David says, I think that sense of community is really at the heart, that geographers tend to just be a lovely bunch of people, both in terms of staff and students. They tend to be people that are curious about the world, that broadly want to make the world a better place, are interested in big issues that matter to people. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's sustainability or climate change or whatever. And we want to both capture that sense, we want to energise it, we want to shape it, we want to learn from it, and we're really lucky to be in that position, I think. And you can see that that's partly a relationship that students have with staff and staff with students. We have an open door policy. Students can knock on staff and see them anytime they want and those things. But it's also a relationship that students have with one another. There's an incredibly active geography society, JogSoc, which recently celebrated its 100th anniversary.
Wow.
They have programmes of speakers, and they organise their own trips abroad. They organise social events and things like that. So students who are coming here are part partly joining an academic research community, but they're also joining a community of other students who are like them. And there's an incredible amount of conversation and dialogue between first years, second years, third years. It really does feel like a community, doesn't it? And the building feels like a community as well.
Yeah, Geography Society does have particularly good reputation as well for being a really, really solid, great course-based society. So you guys have something to be proud of there.
I think it's interesting because it's older than the award of a geography degree as well.
Yeah,
so it's
100
right
years is
in
crazy.
the university, the tradition of the university.
Yeah.
Geographers are right there. And we talk a lot as a discipline about our own traditions, and lots of those we're in the process of rethinking, updating. How do we address today's challenges as geographers? But it's actually really nice to come to work and know that subject is embedded in the university. This university as a kind of idea, as a place.
And physically as well.
Yeah.
You're literally right in the centre. And I'm sure the campus has lots of opportunities to do geography on campus as well, right?
We take our tutees for walks on campus, for example. I think about the history of globalisation through the things that you can see from campus, just looking at the Nottingham skyline, from thinking about its old industrial works of lace, tobacco and so forth, through to boots. The Ratcliffe-on-Soar power station, which recently closed, which is a way to think about climate change, the role of coal and mining in the region's sort of history. And that really gets to something very important about case study work in geography, which is what we've sort of talked about before, which is you can take something very small on your doorstep and connect it to something very big. So actually you don't need to come to us as a well-travelled around the world kind of geographer, not least because one needs to be mindful of carbon footprint. But actually, if you come with a curiosity about the world, that world can begin on your doorstep. And in terms of the research in the school, you'll see there are people who do work with local communities, alongside local communities, learning from people right here on our doorstep, and that culture then also around the world. And we have particular research specialisms in areas like Latin America and India, for example. That then informs the curriculum as well.
It's expansive, basically, isn't it? Yeah. Opportunities endless. So going on from that, could you tell me a bit more about the way that the course is taught?
As David says, the first year is a broad curriculum which is designed to invite students in who have come from geography A levels, often from quite different examination boards, and both upskill them so that they're all on the same page, but also give them a taster of university level geography. Some things they'll be familiar with. Maybe they would have studied globalisation at school and they might study it again in our first year. But other topics like cultural historical geography, aspects of political geography, which I teach, are things that they will be less familiar with. And so it's designed as well as a shop window almost, which then become in the second year optional modules. So I teach, for instance, a block on political geography in year one, which becomes a module on political geography in year two. And the modules change as we go, and as David says, we update the curriculum. But broadly, the second year is defined by optional modules with a small set of compulsory modules which are shaped around training, around techniques development, and around starting to think about the third year research project, which you start midway through the second year. And then the third year, the modules are becoming increasingly specialised. So you again choose a majority of specialist modules and you create your own research project, which you get a dissertation supervisor and you develop that over the course of 12 months. So it's a really interesting degree which speaks across a wide range of areas, but it also rewards people that want to take a kind of specialism in the areas that matter to them. Now that might be a conceptual thematic specialism. They might be interested in political geography or economic geography or something like that. Or it could be a geographical specialism of a particular part of the world that they find really interesting. And as David says, we have that ability to teach across a really wide range of things. And we have the ability to draw on a really special set of resources that we have within the school and within the university. With the university, things like the manuscripts and special collections we use as part of our teaching. In the school, we have a map library of 85,000 maps. We have computer rooms. We have 4 laboratories for testing and for scientific work. So you can see that it's that interplay between resources, between choice, between compulsory modules, which shapes the degree programme as students go through it, and they'll experience teaching as lectures, large lectures, seminar teaching, workshop teaching, field course teaching. There's a real diversity in how we deliver and how we assess. So we assess in the ways that students will be familiar with from school, in terms of exams and coursework, but we also assess through, for example, podcasts, creative projects, through group work, through posters. So there's a real sense that university is no longer just the thing that comes after school, but really is the thing that comes before the world of work. And we want to make sure that our students have the diversity of skills required, which the modern workplace ultimately is looking for.
There's something really important here about the creativity. And I think sometimes that's the thing, certainly on open days, and we're in that mode today, aren't we? Thinking about open days. Yeah, certainly on open days, I like to talk to people about how we assess. And it's interesting because sometimes people think, oh, is it just going to be essays? And is it going to be exam halls, crucially? So that's often in the minds of students. What we're trying to do is match assessment types to workplace scenarios or assessment skills to workplace scenarios. Obviously, some of that's constrained by a variety of factors. But what interests me in terms of this creative point that Jake's saying about geography is how you go about, for example, testing ideas, collecting data, representing it for different kinds of audiences. How do you communicate to somebody who isn't a subject specialist, maybe? And that could be somebody in a policy environment, and you've only got 2 minutes of their time to try and press a kind of case. And this leads really well into careers, right? So we have a variety of skills from lab work to interviews to surveys that geographers are doing. And you speak to a geography graduate years on, and they might not be doing the topics, the stuff of particular modules, but you stop and say, skills.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that time when we spent in the computer room looking at geographic information systems. Oh, what you're doing now, a career in planning, or you're thinking about the ability to digest and represent material that suits a career in consulting in its broadest forms. So consulting firms, large ones that people might have heard of, or very small, maybe environmental consulting firms where you can see direct applications of module content and direct employment of geographic skills. We're very employable.
Yeah.
And I think looking at why people choose geography, often it's deliberately to keep options open. I don't know what I want to be. That's fine. We can help have that kind of conversation and specialise. And then with the support of all of the other facilities in the university, such as the Careers and Employability Service, we can help match your interests and skills to employers. And that could be through the things like placement schemes that students can do during their study. You can even stop the clock between second and third year and switch your degree and graduate with geography with a placement year if you wanted to, and really getting that experience of a world of work. And one thing Jake said to me recently, and I had not thought of this, is that students who come back from those experiences, yes, they're changed by them, but their experience also can help other students in their learning.
Definitely.
And other students start to think about maybe where they want to go. Or it just informs seminar discussions, for example, because they've got different kinds of experience. And that point about kind of background and experience is something that we would want to champion. We want that breadth of experience because we want our geographers to go on to do lots of things. So the classic question, what does a geographer become? Actually, the answer there is almost limitless.
Yeah.
There isn't a defined career path, but there's a world of opportunity.
And you learn so much about the world that you become very wise.
Maybe.
And probably great at pub quizzes.
Well, the student union, the JogSoc, they do have an annual lecturers versus students quiz. Yeah.
Oh, who wins?
I think the last 2 years it has been staff.
Oh. That means you guys need to do better.
Absolutely. The pressure.
The students need to learn more. And
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you. I really want to come to the map room. It sounds incredible. Great. And you've already given me kind of a list as long as my arm of answers to this question. But if you'd like to talk about it a bit more or give the highlights, what makes this degree stand out from others?
As David says, it's a mix of tradition, that we have a very long tradition of geography here at Nottingham. The access to the campus, to the city, we take field trips to the city, we take field trips abroad as well. It's the breadth of geography, it's the breadth of resources that we're able to offer. That's partly because we're a large school, because we teach across the curriculum. And it's also that sense of the future, I think, as David says. Now, that's a sense of stewardship in terms of the environment and in terms of the issues that we think matter. It's a sense of stewardship of students themselves and what their career choices are going to be, what kinds of skills they're going to take into the workplace. And we're really lucky that that's something we take seriously, and it's something that students themselves take seriously. That, students who choose geography very often do so because they want to learn about practical, real-world things. Geographers are interested in theory, they are interested in concepts, but really only as much as they apply to concrete real-world examples.
Yeah.
And if you ask 90% of people, what are the two things they associate more than anything else with geography, it'll be the case study and the field course or the field trip. And that gives you that glimpse of a really boots-on-the-ground sense of that. And that's what then feeds into employment, because that's what shapes the workplace. That geographers have an incredibly broad range of skills. We teach our students around little bits about statistics. We teach them bits about computing and GIS. We teach bits around politics and history and those sorts of liberal arts, humanities topics. We teach them things around the natural environment and science. They learn some scientific skills in the laboratory, for instance. And you can see entirely why, in an uncertain world of employment, where it's much more likely that people will change career, it's much more likely that whole industries might be upended by technological change, that the ability to put your hand to lots of skills becomes the valuable skill in itself. Do you know what I mean? And that's the geography pitch, I think. That it's a discipline that pushes against the modern specialisation of the university, that increasingly narrow fields of knowledge, and makes a case that just breadth in and of itself is important. And in that story, I think that Nottingham is able to tap into that. We're able to offer that breadth in all of its colour and variety.
But what careers can geography graduates go on to?
Geography careers, limitless possibilities. So the point for all of our students to take on board is that they're learning topics and they're learning skills. And we can help our students, with the support of the school and the university structures, university services, I beg your pardon, match students' interests, worldly interests, applied interests, to employment. And I think when you look at areas where our students go, they would include things like consulting in all its broad forms. They would include things like marketing. They would include further research, actually. And that doesn't mean further research in an exclusively academic context. That could be for a variety of policy and think tank style organisations. It could be in towards media and the public understandings of things like science, because of the varied nature of our assessment. And also, importantly, into areas like government, civil service and local government. Again, with that variety of skills, the ability to digest and represent information. Employability it's really important to students. It's also really important to us as a school.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we'll leave it there, but thank you both so much. You're clearly really passionate about your courses and they sound super interesting, so thank you. There's a lot more information about geography available on the website.